Okay, we're going to introduce assignment number 9 today, our digital painting assignment. And if we look at the class photo bucket, there's kind of two things you can choose from to paint. And I want you to start thinking about your subject matter. And those two things are either an animal or a person. And you can do them either as a caricature or as representational, as realistic as you can. So let's look at some past instructor demonstrations here. Usually when you do a digital painting, it's not from the imagination, it's from reference. So this was a quick kind of speed painting of a musician I like, Elvis Costello. I wanted to do a Christmas card with a digital painting of this rhino. It says Happy Holidays in his folds. I did a portrait of James Joyce, the author, and I started doing it representationally to show that with some pretty crazy colors, and then the different versions that can come out of that digitally. Abstract, non-representational even. Or you can do an animal, but if you do an animal, I'd like you to do head to toe. So fit the whole animal on the screen. So this was the reference, and I was able to add resolution to it, add texture, add quite a bit of detail, and that's the beauty of digital painting, is by using your own brushes, your own choices of color. You can see the blues in there, you can see each tooth, you can see the claws. You get to make it your own, even if it is just set off of one photo. So this is all about finding ways to make an image that we like our own, no matter what they are. And then last semester, I went the caricature route, and we took a photo that was given and did a full family caricature in digital painting. So all of these things are possible. What you need to choose is what subject matter do you want to do. And I've already kind of chosen mine for the semester, and I've already started collecting reference for that. But before we get into that, I think it's important for everyone to download this PDF digital coloring and painting primer from our links page in the course, right there. And to just have this open. So I'm going to take this from my desktop or from my downloads folder, put it onto my desktop. It's a PDF. If you wanted to, you can even print it out, but it only works if you print it out in color. Let me see. And this is something I will refer to quite a bit, which is why I give you this handout as we set things up. First of all, we want to deal with the differences between digital coloring and digital painting. We just finished a digital coloring assignment with our spot illustration. And then to some extent, we did that digital coloring on our text for our posters as well. So this is digital coloring. You might sketch it, but then you have an outline, a real or implied outline that contains all of your color. It's like putting glass behind metal for a stained glass window. And then even if you color over the top of your outline with color holds or special effects, that's still digital coloring because it's working with a defined outline through the process. Digital painting is shape-based, not line-based. So though you might start with a sketch, even a line sketch like this apple on the bottom, or a shape-based sketch like this kiwi on the top, notice that the edges are never fully defined with outlines. It's brushstrokes and shapes that define everything and that eventually render out the form. And on this step here, those edges have to be actually cut out and cleaned up because hard edges and soft edges combined give you the realistic painting. So these show the steps, some basic steps, which have a lot of overlap with digital coloring. And I've labeled them here because it's good to have a shared vocabulary. So you start with local flat color. And on the kiwi, that's pretty easy. The skin is brown, the inside is green, right? But on the apple, the local flat color is not that easy, because this isn't a red apple or a yellow apple. This is an apple that has both. So the local colors themselves are almost full spectrum. And then you duotone. Here is duotone with soft edges, so the greens of the middle of the kiwi get separated into light greens and dark greens, the same with the browns. And here's duotone hard edge, where you're just showing the brightest part of the inside of the kiwi as a hard edge shape. But there really is no such thing as purely hard or purely soft edges when you're painting. Just like using a brush, depends how you mix the paint, how much water is in it or oil, and what kind of brush you're using, whether it's a hard edge brush or a soft edge brush to get these effects. So it's really going back and forth. And then you're just adding more and more definition. So adding full spectrum color is when you add a little bit of the browns into the greens, or a little bit of the greens into the browns. And then you get more and more into the little details, and then you might glaze it all over with other colors, and you work on the textures, and eventually, you get to something that you're happy with. Now that can be true of very representational paintings of fruit, and it can be true of abstractions and straightforward portraits from photos. All of these are digital paintings with just different effects. Some look more like watercolor, some look more like acrylic or oil paint, some look more like monotype or printmaking or rubbings, but they're all just created digitally. You can even put some compositing into it. So I'll show you a very basic beginning. And this should help you if you ever want to paint a portrait or use your digital painting to understand a portrait. So we're going to create a new Photoshop file. I'll make it 8 by 10 inches by 350, and I'll just call this Carl Digital Paint Tutorial Portrait. And I'll try to do a portrait and an animal at the same time, /animal. Okay, now the first thing you would need is reference, right? So just go to a Google image search, but you don't need high resolution reference. And I'm going to look for a portrait photo. I'm just going to take whatever it gives me, because it doesn't matter for a tutorial. I might as well do a public figure. And the reason I don't want to do one that's just staring straight forward is because that just doesn't give me a whole lot of interesting options, digital paint wise. But I might as well do a public figure at a slight 3/4 view. So I see a lot of Obama. So let me narrow it down. Doesn't even matter if they're in color or not. Color selections can be very subjective. Let's get a 3/4 view of the man. This might be the best I can get. These are some good ones. And there we have a nice painting. I don't know if that's digital or not. It can be hard to tell. All right. So usually when I do portraits, I like to have multiple references, right? But I'm going to save this. It's not very large, but that doesn't matter. I'm going to save it to the desktop. Make sure it gets there. And now an animal. My dyslexia is coming through. And I want a head-to-toe animal. Something that's the shape of it really communicates it. So let's do this lion. What? I like that little pig, but the lion shapes are much more iconic, much more descriptive. Okay, now that I have my reference, I want to open those up in Photoshop along with my canvas. Remember, these are not very large files, so they're not going to take up a lot of memory. They're just JPEGs, but the difference is I need to organize it so I have like a big canvas on one side and then my images off to the side, usually off to the right because I'm right-handed. So I'm going to arrange and I'm going to say 3 upstacked. And then I'm going to play with zooming in and out and fitting these references on and playing with the borders of them. Come on. So I can see everything clearly, put everything in its place. So I've got my lion there, and just like in real painting, setting everything up takes a little bit of time. Okay, now this is my canvas. Just like digital coloring, I want to start with a blank white background. I'm going to lock that and start painting on a blank layer on top of that. So on my layer 1, the first thing I can do, and I'm going to show you there's 2 types of starting a painting. One I can sketch with sketchy lines. Where's preview? Or I can do it with a shape painting, which is called speed painting. So I'm going to always have this open in preview just so I can refer to it. So either sketched speed painting, and I'll do that for Obama, or line, which I'll do for the, actually I'll swap it, since you probably want to know how to sketch a face, even though I have it in previous tutorials. First I'll do the sketched face. So I like to use a blue line just because I'm nostalgic that way for blue line pencils. I'm going to use a brush that's pressure sensitive to size, not too large, very soft, and not 100% opaque. That's all going to work just fine. And I'm going to sketch it out like this. Get even smaller. Take its opacity down even more. I'm going to try to find those basic shapes. Find where his eye line is, dividing the space. Eye line is right in the middle of the head. Take the opacity down even more so I can really find it. There we go. Find where the nose line is. That's halfway down from the eye line to the chin. And I get it started. This is just like the apple. Find the hairline, find the ear. His ears go back quite a bit. Find the neck in that shape. And if you're doing a portrait, you only need to do the head. Find the eyes. Use multiple layers as I need to, and as I have a map, I can go to more and more opacity. Not trying to draw it in a refined way, in a sketchy way. Trying to get the proportions of his face. And the overall kind of egg shape of his head. How angular is it? Where is his hairline? How does that connect with his ear? What is the shape and size of his ear? It should fit between the eye and nose line. And of course, the more drawing practice you have, the easier this stuff is. But ultimately, it's all going to be in flux once we start the painting process. This is just the sketch underneath the painting. Okay, then his jaw drops back to about here. And then his neck. And then his head shape rounds out like that. His eyes a little bit more heavy-lidded, and his eyebrows are very heavy. I never noticed how heavy his eyebrows were. And then he's got these very dominant smile lines. All right, so I'm not trying to finish out the drawing. I'm trying to place things out. He's got these nice wrinkles on his neck, showing he's turning his head, and his collar, and his suit. And all of that will help tell the story. I think I need more space at his jaw. So this is why I'm sketching, and I can find that. And I can use my eraser if I need to. So that is the sketching approach. In the next demo, I'll show you just the speed painting, shape-based approach with an animal.